for today is treating holy books. How do we treat Sifrei Kodesh? And I would say that our discussion is going to be divided into 4 parts. But I'm not sure that we're going to cover all 4 parts today. I think we might do 3 parts today, and then the 4th part, Bezrat Hashem, next week. The first thing I want to talk about is the respect that we give to Sifrei Torah. The holy book, the prime example of a holy book is the Sefer Torah. Yes?
Is it true, like, when all Sefer Torah have to fast in 3 days?
Yes. Yeah, if you witness a Sefer Torah falling. Yeah. Not 3 days, 3 days, 3 nights. Yeah, like 3 days, and then you eat in the evenings, 3 days. You know, one day is from like the fast on Friday, from Alot HaShachar until Tzet HaKochavim. Okay. Not for an uninterrupted 3 days. I mean, it's not pleasant, but it's not impossible. Okay, so I want to start by talking about the Sefer Torah. When do we stand? When do we not required to stand? How we treat the Sefer Torah. From the Sefer Torah, I want to go to holy books. How do we treat holy books? How do we define holy books? Which books are, Sifrei Kodesh? How we treat holy books. That's the second topic. After that, I want to talk about, I suppose the first 2 topics are about our reverence for a book. Then the second half is at the end of a book. Are you allowed to throw things away? What happens with a worn out holy book? What should we do with a worn out holy book? We'll also spend a little bit of time talking about the source for not throwing away holy books when they finish their use, and which holy books we can throw away, which holy books we can't throw away. Source material, like a source sheet like this. What's the law of that? If there's a newspaper with a Devar Torah in it, is that a holy book, or is that just a newspaper with a Devar Torah in it? So the first section, that's 1 and 2, is reverence for the holy books. And then the second 2 topics is sort of, at the end of a holy book's life, what do we do with the book at the end? Okay, is that good for everybody? So we're going to start with the Sefer Torah. But before we get to the Sefer Torah, I just want to tell you why, not that you need to, it's obvious, why this is such an important topic. I think that the respect that we have for holy books, the way that we treat Sifrei Kodesh, is an indication our reverence for the books. I love sitting in this room because we are surrounded by Sifrei Kodesh. The fact that when I finish using my Siddur, I kiss my Siddur. The fact that if a book is like it's upside down, so the top, the back is at the top, you obviously switch it to the other side. If, God forbid, a holy book falls down, you pick it up and you kiss it. Our reverence for the books, for Sifrei Kodesh, is an indication that my relationship with Limud Torah is not a purely academic study, but I can express my Ahavat Torah not just in the way I dance, or the way that I say Kiddush, or the way that I enjoy my Zemirot Shabbat, but I can express my Ahavat Hashem, my love of God, my love of Torah. I can express that through the way that I treat holy books. And that's why I can, the difference between a Beit Midrash and a library, a purely academic institution, is the way we treat the Sifrei Kodesh. Sifrei Kodesh is what turns this into it's not a library, it's a room that contains Sifrei Kodesh, which, if the topic here was chemistry, we would just want to feel the same way. You hear? Okay. So I want to start with the holy book. The holy book, the holiest book, is a Sefer Torah. Now, just a few words about the Sefer Torah. I was actually, just before I came here, I don't know if you go down the road from here, have you seen their lights on the street?
Right. Yeah, and I was wondering what's the reason?
Like they've just shown up in the last day or two.
Yeah, like maybe week. Let's put it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I was walking past. There's a big sign on one of the apartments there, and it says "Sisu v'simchu b'simchat Torah," like to rejoice in Torah. I'm guessing that the lights are there because there is a Sefer Torah that is going to be completed there in that place. Like Bornholm, like this is where, when a Sefer Torah is almost completed, and then when a Sefer Torah is almost completed, it's brought to a home, the person who commissioned the Sefer Torah, and then they complete the Sefer Torah, and then you had an incomplete Sefer Torah, and now once you complete it, it becomes a whole Sefer Torah. If God forbid it would fall, you would need to fast, because it's at that stage. And then people dance in the street, taking this Sefer Torah, which was completed in a home, and they dance it to the shul. And when people dance the Sefer Torah to the shul, it's an amazing, beautiful, beautiful ceremony. If you hear the noise, and it's coming from where the lights are, just stop whatever you're doing. If you're in the middle of eating, it's more important. Just stop whatever you're doing and just go and it's a really moving ceremony. The Sefer Torah is danced to the Bet Knesset. Has anyone here been at one of these ceremonies before?
I saw it last night. I came out of my...
Oh, that was it?
Yeah, they came, whatever the street is here that goes through the...
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. There were tons of, kids with, holding torches.
Yes, that's right. Lapidot.
Neon.
Yeah.
They call it a chuppah.
Yes, yeah, they held... Yeah, that's right. They dance it under a chuppah.
Yeah.
And they dance it to the shul. And then you want to hear, this is the sweetest thing. And then, do you know what happens when they arrive in the shul? You open the Aron HaKodesh, obviously. And then all the Sifrei Torah from the Aron HaKodesh, you take them out. And then they dance, the Sefer Torah from the Aron HaKodesh, dance carried from the Aron HaKodesh to outside the shul in order to bring the new Sefer Torah into the Aron HaKodesh. It's a very, very moving experience. I would say surprisingly moving for the first time when I was there, but maybe not surprising. That's really what a Sifrei Kodesh, that's what it's all about. So this ceremony, the lights are from the event that took place last night. Yeah, makes sense.
I didn't know. Thank you for the context, because didn't look like a wedding. I couldn't place what was going on.
So I'm guessing that the house down there, they completed it, and then it's like a 5-minute walk. Right. And the police often close off the roads, and they have these huge vans that blast very loud noise that... Oh, anyway, that's part of it. Another discussion. Okay, so talking about that's the dedication. That's a very, very moving experience. But let's talk about a regular day. We all know that if somebody opens up an Aron HaKodesh and takes out the Sefer Torah, we all immediately stand. We stand in respect for the Sefer Torah that's on the move. And that's really the prime example of respect to the holiest book is when the holiest book comes in, we stand like a scholar. If a scholar comes into the room, we stand for them as well. So I want to look at the basis, the source for standing up for Sefer Torah, and then discuss with you at what stage are we supposed to stand up for a Sefer Torah, and then we'll transition from a Sefer Torah to Sifrei Kodesh. Okay, so look at this. Do you see this? Yeah, number 1, Kavod Sefer Torah, showing respect for a Sefer Torah. There are four sources we're going to look at. So first of all, this Mishnah from Masechet Avot is really the introduction to our whole discussion about respect for holy books. Rabbi Yossi taught, Kol ha'mechabed et Torah, anyone who respects Torah, gufo mechubad al habriot, that person will earn the respect of the people around them. V'chol ha'mechalel chas v'shalom et Torah, anyone who disgraces the Torah, gufo mechulal al habriot, they will be disgraced by the people around them. So really, we are required to show respect for the Torah in a totally different context. But now that I read it, I just remember the words of Rabbi Sachs. Rabbi Sachs once said that the non-Jewish world respect Jews who respect their Judaism. And I think that's very similar to what's being said over here, that if I have the integrity to respect my religion, I earn the respect of people around me by having the integrity to respect my religious values. Does that make sense? Now that's wider than this Mishnah, but the Mishnah, we're reading in a narrow sense to show respect to Torah, but Rabbi Sachs took it wider, not just the text, not just a scroll, and not just the books, but anyone who takes, anyone who respects their lifestyle, to be part of the Jewish community, so they earn the respect of the world around them. Okay, that is the introduction. The source for standing up for Sefer Torah is actually from a verse in Parashat Kedoshim in Sefer Vayikra. The Torah tells us like this: Mipnei Seva takum. We are required to stand up for the elderly. Vahadarta pnei zaken, show respect for elders. Vayareta melokecha, fear of heaven, ani Hashem. So this is, I think, the only time in the Torah where we are commanded to stand up for someone, or stand up at all. Meaning, there are many commandments in the Torah. You have to wear tzitzit, put on tefillin, fix a mezuzah, build a sukkah, shake a lulav. But the only time that we're commanded to stand up, lakum, the only time that we for all time are required lakum is, I'm required lakum to stand up for elders. Has anyone ever seen this verse? Do you know where this verse appears? Do you know where? I hope I'm not correct here. This verse, Mipnei Seva takum, stand up for the elders. It is on the... Yeah, it's in Vayikra. But where do you see it printed? Have you ever seen it printed anywhere?
Oh.
Yes, exactly.
On the subway?
Yes, exactly. Very good. On the buses, on the light railway, on public transport.
There's a pictogram, so...
Mipnei Seva takum, stand up. Rather than saying, please stand for they quote the verse that says, stand up for the elderly. I mean, it couldn't be clearer than that. Mipnei Seva takum. Okay, so that's the verse in the book of Vayikra, and the only time in the Torah that we are required to stand. From this requirement to stand for people, the Gemara in Kiddushin extends it. Mahu la'amod lifnei Sefer Torah. Isn't that amazing? What's the requirement? What's the relationship? Should we be standing up for Sefer Torah? Rav Chilkiah, Rabbi Simon, Rav Elazar, Omri, these three rabbis, Rabbi Chilkiah, Rav Simon, and Rav Elazar, all said, Kal v'chomer. You can deduce the requirement to stand up for a Sefer Torah. How can you deduce the requirement to stand up for a Sefer Torah? Mipnei lomdei ha'omdim. If I'm required to stand up for people who engage in Torah, so mipaneh, for that thing, then of course I need to stand. If I'm required to stand for people who take Torah seriously, so then the Torah scroll itself, of course I'm required to stand for it. So that's the Gemara in Kiddushin. Now I want to say that this Gemara in Kiddushin is important for two reasons. First of all, it's based on a verse. It's the rabbis extending a verse. There's lots of interesting customs that over, thousands of years of Jewish history, we as the Jewish community have accumulated. Do this way or do that way. The custom to stand up for a Sefer Torah is from the Talmud. It's not a recent custom. There's so many things that in a few weeks' time we'll be celebrating Tu B'Shvat. And we're gonna, a lot of people have a custom to do a Seder Tu B'Shvat. Just to put things into context, when I was a child, I don't think I even knew what a Seder Tu B'Shvat was. In terms of Jewish history, it's quite a recent, really caught on in quite a big way. But standing up for Sefer Torah is 2,000 years old. Dates back to the time of the Gemara. Just to understand how important it is. Now, when do you need to stand up? So, the Shulchan Aruch, as we would expect, was really the Bet Yosef. But the author of the Shulchan Aruch in the Bet Yosef clarifies, when do I need to stand up whenever I see a Sefer Torah? At what stage am I required to stand up? And the Bet Yosef says like this: Haro'eh oto keshuhu mahalech chayav la'amod lefanav ad sheyitkaseh me'einechem. So when am I required to stand up? I'm required to stand up when I see a Sefer Torah on the move. So, do you know what that means? I'll tell you two interesting things. If somebody were to open the ark, what do? Stand up, right? But actually, you don't need to stand up. I mean, we do. Why do we stand up when they open the ark? Because why do they open the ark? People open the ark in order to remove a Sefer Torah. But really, the ark being open is not according to, as we see from the Bet Yosef, is not enough of a requirement for me to stand up. Now, sometimes when the ark is open during davening, they open the ark because it's a serious moment, especially on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim, when there's a piyut that has, it's something we need to focus on. So the way that we focus our minds is by opening the ark, and we stand up. We're standing up at that moment really because of the importance of the prayer that we're about to say. Meaning both opening the ark and both standing up are all indications we're about to say something important. But I'm not standing up because the ark's open, I'm standing up because this prayer is important. You follow? But if a Sefer Torah is on the move, we are required to stand up. Now, I just mentioned this as like a little fickle thing that just for you to know about. Often, let's say in shul on Simchat Torah. On Simchat Torah, they take out Sefer Torah and people dance around the shul. And sometimes people sit down. I mean, people who are, elderly people, of course they sit down. First of all, they've earned it. They are seva themselves. And they're sitting down because they haven't got the energy to stand up the whole time. But for young people like yourselves, if you wanted to sit down on Simchat Torah, you should really leave the room. But you shouldn't be in a room with a Sefer Torah on the move and sitting. But it's interesting because you have some people that would never dream of sitting down when the Aron HaKodesh is open, but they would sit down when the Sefer Torah. But really, actually, it's the other way around. That if you want to, you don't want to be the only person sitting down when the whole shul is standing up when the Aron HaKodesh is open. There's a general principle in Halachah that you need to be part of the team. If everyone is standing up and you're sitting down, it's your way of saying, this isn't for me. So you do need to stand up. I'm standing up, not because I'm required to stand up because the Aron HaKodesh is open, but because this is my community. This is what the community is doing this minute. But you certainly need to stand up when the Sefer Torah is on the move. Is that clear to everybody? Joy, happiness?
Joy, happiness.
Oh, that's all we want.
Time is about to come.
Oh! How do you know that?
It's just texted me. Where are you?
Oh, see. Oh, you're such a prophet. I thought you were a prophet, but actually, you've just got a phone. That's also good. Okay. Perfect timing. We've now concluded our discussion about Sifrei Torah. No questions about Sifrei Torah. We spoke about the fallen Sefer Torah. I really hope for all of you, you have the opportunity to go intentionally to a, not as opposed to unintentionally, but to go intentionally to a Hachnasat Sefer Torah. It's a very, very powerful, quite moving experience. But if we move now from the Sefer Torah, Shalom Aleichem. What a pleasure to see you. How are you? Your timing is perfect. Absolutely perfect, because we've just concluded Sefer Torah, and we're now going to move on to Sifrei Kodesh. Sifrei Kodesh is a much more relevant topic for all of us here in this room. None of us, I guess, own a Sefer Torah, but I would hope that we all own Sifrei Kodesh. And therefore, the way that we treat Sifrei Kodesh is a very important topic for us, to know about. It's interesting because in the olden days, no, by the time of the Shulchan Aruch, this was less the case. The libraries that we have now match, each individual has a library that matches the size of a library of kings and queens of like a 1,000. Before there was printing and there were manuscripts. And nowadays, each of us, the price of books has gone down, that we have the opportunity, especially Sifrei Kodesh, to buy a Gemara or to buy Rambam, is something that's possible, which is just an amazing gift. We just want to know how I should treat my Jewish books. Okay. So we're going to start looking at the Shulchan Aruch. We are the people of the book, so it makes it even more important. I remember when we first got married, Hannah and I, we lived in London in a block of flats, and we were very young, but our neighbours weren't Jewish, as you would expect. And they were also a young couple. And every once in a while, I'd borrow a tomato or borrow an egg, and whenever they came into our flat, they would always say, "Oh my gosh, you've got so many books." They had very little. Why would a young couple have any books in their home? We had maybe like that much books, like 5 shelves of books. But I always remember, I think that they're often distinct when you go into a Jewish home. What makes a Jewish home, what you can spot a Jewish home is because there's normally a library in a Jewish home, because we take our learning seriously, and the way that we treat the books is part of that story. Okay, so we're going to start with the Shulchan Aruch. We're going to talk about ordering Sfarim. If you have a pile of books, what book should be on top? Okay, so the Shulchan Aruch tells us, Asur leishev al hamita shesefer Torah aleha. You're not allowed to sit down on a bed or a bench or anything if there is a Sefer Torah on it. And the Ramah adds, V'chol sheken she'asur lahanicha al gabi karka. And you're certainly never allowed to put a holy book on the floor. V'uadin shar Torah, so we're talking about Sefer Torah and all other books. So obviously we wouldn't be able to sit on the table here for many reasons, but one of the reasons why we couldn't is because we've got Torah material on the table. You can't sit on a bench where there's stuff on the bench. This also is relevant sometimes for tefillin, talis and tefillin. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but when I was a child in London, when you used to go to shul, this might be true in shuls in Europe as well. Maybe you'll know that, like in the big shuls, they look a bit like cathedrals. I davened in one like that in London, and then everybody had a seat. There was no eruv, so we used to keep our siddur and a chumash. The seat opened up, and then the books were underneath. But if you ever go to Israel, you'll notice that you never find a pew built in that way. They'll normally have in the front of you a little thing for you to put your books in, either near your legs or the book rest opens up and you can put books in it. Why? Because of this idea, it's not respectful for me to sit on my books, even though I'm not sitting at the same level. But it's not, even I know it's inside a container inside, but where nowadays I'm designing new Batei Knesset, you won't find a shul, I don't think, in Israel, as opposed to outside of Israel where they were designed previously. And I think it's an awareness of this halakha over here, that I don't want to be sitting on my books. I don't want to sit at the same level as the books, and therefore in the shuls today, the books are normally in the book, in your, the book rest above. That normally opens up and you put books in there, which is a more respectful place to store the books based on what we just seen over here in the Shulchan Aruch. Is that clear? Let's continue reading. Va'afilu ala madrigot she'osin lifnei Aron HaKodesh asur lahaniach sfarim. Even if it's higher up, you shouldn't put books on steps. V'lo yanich adam sefer Torah al brechav. You shouldn't even read it with it on your knees. Like when I'm learning Sifrei Kodesh, I'm learning Sifrei Kodesh. So I'm not reading. Sometimes, well, I don't know if you know. I don't. Let's say I'm reading a novel, like lying down on your bed and reading a novel. So my approach to Sifrei Kodesh is different. I don't lie on my bed and hold up my Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and read my Kitzur Shulchan Aruch in that position. To show respect for the book, I would sit up straight because I'm engaged in Torah study when I'm studying the book. So the way that I treat the book, both in its storage time, I would never, put it down on the bench next to me. I would never leave Sifrei Kodesh. Well, you can leave them on your bed. If you're blessed with small rooms. So if we all lived in mansions, then we wouldn't say, don't put books on your bed. But if I do have books on my bed and I want to sit on the bed, I would need to remove the books before I sit on the bed. Is that clear to everybody? I think it's a very powerful idea, and it goes back to what we were saying this at the beginning, but I'll repeat it again, that it's the difference between approach to Torah. It's an expression of Avat Hashem, Avat Torah, Avat Hashem, Kvod Torah. Showing respect for Torah is not just in the way I perform mitzvot, but it's also the way I treat my holy books, and I distinguish my holy books from my other books in that way too. Okay, is that clear to everybody? Point number one. We're going to make 3 points. About halachot, about books. Yeah, I'm going to make 3 points. Okay, let's go to the second statement from the Shulchan Aruch. We're going through the laws of Sifrei Torah in the Shulchan Aruch. And it's quite a long siman, but I'm only cut out little bits that are interesting. Okay, the second halacha is about a pile of books. What's an appropriate pile? If I've got, oh wow, Dafka today, the library is so tidy. It's amazing. Every once in a while you come in here and there's like piles of books, above the bookcases. So what's an appropriate way to pile a, can I have a chumash at the bottom of a pile, for example? Right. So we're going to look over here. Shulchan Aruch says like this. Mutar lahaniach Sefer Torah al Sefer Torah. You'd be allowed to stack Sifrei Torah. If I have one Sefer Torah, I would never put anything on top of a Sefer Torah other than a Sefer Torah. Exactly. Uminichim chumashim al gabei neviim uchtuvim. And likewise, I can pack, if I have piles of a Tanakh, so then the Torah would be at the top, the Chumash would be at the top, and underneath the Nevi'im U'Ktuvim. Aval, ein menichim Nevi'im U'Ktuvim al gabei Chumashim, v'lo Chumashim al gabei Sifrei Torah. You follow? So the top of the pile will always be the Sefer Torah. After the Sefer Torah will always be a Chumash, and then after a Chumash will be Nevi'im U'Ktuvim. And then after Nevi'im U'Ktuvim would be every other book. You follow? So holy books are always the top of the pile. So sometimes when I have a pile of books, I want to put the pile in size, right? But so I could have a very big Chumash and then a little Mishnah. But really, I would need to have my Chumash. I could not put the Mishnah on top of the Chumash. The Chumash needs to be on top of the Mishnah, even if the Chumash is the big book and the Mishnah is the little book. Is that clear? Okay. Continuing. Aval Ktuvim al Gabei Nevi'im. So, yeah, it's fine. The 3 books of Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ktuvim. It's Chumash is not level 1, and then Nevi'im Ketuvim is level 2. It's not level 1 Torah, level 2 Nevi'im, level 3 Ketuvim, not that. Rather, Torah is number 1, Nevi'im Ketuvim number 2, and then all other books is 3. Is that clear to everyone? Okay. Okay, then he said, but we're going to miss out. We're talking about the order. The order is only in separate books. You know, if I have a book and I just happen to publish a book where the first half of the book is a book of halacha and the second part of the book happens to be a chumash. Like nowadays, often you have a siddur and the laning is at the back of the siddur, right? So you say this is Torah. You can't have Torah at the back. Torah has to be at the top. So Torah only has to be, we're only talking about if you're piling up books. But within a book, you don't need to have Torah as the top. Does that make, you follow what I'm saying? Yeah, okay, good. Everything clear until now? Okay, that's point number 2. I want to make one more point about Sifrei Kodesh before we get to point number 3. And and then with that we'll conclude our discussion of Sifrei Kodesh and then talk about worn out books, Be'ezrat Hashem. Okay. Another important halacha, and this is also a question about how you design your apartments. And that is that you should not get undressed in front of Sifrei Kodesh. Do you know about, so, you know, sometimes, let's say when, Be'ezrat Hashem, when you have a home, so then you would not keep your Sifrei Kodesh in the bedroom. You would keep your Sifrei Kodesh in a library, rather than keeping the Sifrei Kodesh in a bedroom. I mean, if you're learning Chumash before you go to bed, you can have some Sifrei Kodesh, but my library and my bedroom should be 2 separate rooms, because it's not respectful for Sifrei Kodesh. You know, for the Sifrei Kodesh it's not bedroom material, it's you know, like daytime material, and therefore it's not respectful for Sifrei Kodesh to be in a bedroom. So what some people do, I have to say we don't do this, but I remember I had uncle and aunt that did this. When I was a little boy, I stayed at my uncle and aunt. My uncle was a rabbi in London, and I stayed with him and his wife for Shabbat. But they weren't blessed with children. They had a 1-bedroom apartment, and I stayed over with my siblings. So we had to sleep in the main room, but the main room is the room with all of my uncle's Sifrei Kodesh. So they put sheets on the Sifrei Kodesh to make it into a bedroom for us overnight. Because it's not respectful for the library to be a bedroom. I have to say, we, in our home, in the home I live in with my family now, so when we have guests, we do have a room with Sifrei Kodesh in it, and we don't cover up the Sifrei Kodesh when people stay over in our apartment. But our children who stay, when they're married children, when they stay there, so they don't get changed in that room, because it's not appropriate for me to, you know, or if you need to be covered in front of, you need to be covered in front of Sifrei Kodesh. It's a sign of respect for the books. Okay, that's point number 2. I've got 3 points. That was number 2. Yes.
Is Siddur considered Sefer Kodesh?
It is, yeah. But let's say I have a Kriyat Shema Siddur that I keep next to my bed. But that's okay. I think we're talking about like a library of books as opposed to, and sometimes you might have a book that you're reading, you know, like some people have a Chumash that they go over, or Mishnah that they're learning, and they might keep that by their beds. I remember when I was younger, Hannah and I, my wife and I, we were house parents in a yeshiva, and I just couldn't believe this boy was just a superstar. You know, most people next to their bed, especially nowadays, people probably have a phone and a charger. He had a pile of books. He was like learning Mishnah Bura and then Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. He's now a top educator, but when I was there, I was just his madrich in yeshiva. And he had this pile of books, but it's because he was learning these books in the evening before he went to bed. But I think there's a difference between the books that I'm learning now and a library of books. I would cover a library of books, but the books I'm learning, the Kriyat Shema, my siddur for Kriyat Shema, or for other books I might be learning, I don't think that's not a library of books, and that would be okay then to get undressed. Is that clear to everybody?
So prayer books, Tehillim is okay
Yeah.
on the bed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, you can't sit on, no. You can't sit on the bed with Sefer Tilim on it. I'm talking about the second point. The second point is about, treating, we shouldn't treat a library as a bedroom. That's really the point. You follow? Like a library of Sifrei Kodesh, this room where we are right now would never be a bedroom. Because this is a place of Makom Kadosh. It's a Sifrei Kodesh in this room. You follow? Because of the Sefer Kodesh in this room, it's not a bedroom. But if I have a pile of books I happen to be learning, that's not a library of books. You follow? It's more about having a library in a bedroom, more than about, getting undressed in front of Sefer Kodesh. Am I making myself clear? I'm distinguishing between a library, and a library shouldn't be a bedroom. But if I have some books that I'm like a Sefer Tilim, or if I have a Chumash, or if I have a Siddur next to my bed, that's fine. Is that clear?
Yeah.
The first point was about the pile of the books, and the second one was about a library. Everything clear to everybody?
Yeah.
Now, point number 3. Point number 3 is an amazing machloket. And I didn't realize how fortunate I was in my props here today. Imagine that this is a Sefer Kodesh, right? And this is another Sefer Kodesh. Would this be an appropriate activity to use book A to prop up book B for my study? Do you think that would be appropriate and permitted? Or should I not use Sefer Kodesh A to prop up Sefer Kodesh B?
I guess if you study from both.
Using one as a support solely, so which is at least to me is a kind of a disrespectful. So
He's quite a harsh mayor. Mayor's
But then you can open and read the pasuk.
well, going that far.
No, you could, but Tachlis, really, we all know that I'm really using book A as but like this thing here, I'm treating book A here as a book rest. Is that an appropriate use for a Sefer Kodesh? Yes, you think yes. Oh, I am so excited. This is brilliant. Oh, wonderful. It's like Poland fighting it out over here. Shmuel and Meir. You think it is appropriate? Excellent. Oh, do you have an opinion, Yosef?
I would say that it's visual damaging for me. Like, for me, it's inappropriate.
It is appropriate.
It is inappropriate.
It's inappropriate. You would not allow it.
Yeah.
You're mayor. You're with mayor here. Any other positions? Any other thoughts on this?
I do not agree.
You don't agree with either of them. We have to agree with one of them.
I do not agree to putting using book.
Ah, you would not. Oh, wow! Look at this, mayor. You think you should not do it. Okay, we are going to look at a lovely machloket. A lovely machloket on this issue, on how to treat Sifrei Kodesh. The machloket is between the Taz and the Magen Avraham. If you have a look over here, the Taz says, Nirali, it appears to me, דאותן אנשים שנוהגים בשעת לימודם בספר ורוצה להקפיא הספר שלו למד, פושט ידו ולוקח ספר אחר, do you follow that? ומניח תחת זה שלומד, דאיסורו איקו משום ביזיון. That is a disrespectful for this book over here. Tal says, what are you talking about? How could you do that? As says Fabricio, a mayor, and Yosef over here. That's a terrible sign of disrespect for Sefer number 1. I'm just use wood. Get a piece of wood. Treating a book like wood. That is the Taz. However, Shmuel, the Magen Avraham quotes the Taz and disagrees. Listen to you are in very good company. You have the
I was with Meir.
He was saying with
I
me.
was saying that it's
with,
disrespectful. I
with
was.
Taz.
Oh, so I misunderstood you. Oh, so
It's
no
okay.
one's. Oh, so we're.
Nobody.
Oh, so you're all there. Oh, so excited. We thought we had a lovely argument going on. Mata Choshev, Chaim.
Well, I would go for the third.
Oh, very wise.
But,
Very discreet.
I think you can if the reason of the Sefer Kodesh underneath is to learn the Sefer Kodesh.
Oh, excellent. So look at the Magen Avraham. Magen Avraham. Right over here. So he gives a source. And he says, the Gemara Megillah tells us to mutar la'aniach hateva toch hachalon listor motor shelo yitaknes hatuma beveit hakneset va'af al taveh shimush shel chol. Given she'en shimush, I'm gonna dema li shemunach kan uma li shemunach sham. I'm not going to go into the details there because it will take us a little bit off our topic. I'm going to go to the end of the first line on the second page. But Taz, he quotes the Taz that we saw. You're forbidden to take Sefer number 1 and use Sefer number 1 to prop up Sefer number 2. שיהיה נוח לו לראות ולעיין בתוכו, אלא אם כן מונח הספר כבר. אז מותר להניח השני על גביו. עד כאן לשונו, that's what he says. So he says, based on what he said previously, mashma deshari, I think it's permitted v'kol shekain kasher oseh lilmod mimeno. He says, the Magen Avraham, I'm going to explain this in the following way. Imagine Sefer number 2, right? If Sefer number 2 could speak. And here I have, use a Talmud Chacham over here. You have Shmuel is striking away, right? And Shmuel is immersed in what he's learning. In Parashat Shavua, he's learning Parashat Vayechi. And he's going through the Rashi, and he's really enjoying his learning, but it's flat. And then Sefer number 1 over here, which is a Sefer Halacha, not connected. Do you know what Sefer Halacha wants to do? The only thing that Sefer Halacha wants is, the Sefer Halacha wants to make Shmuel's learning of the Torah easier. It's not an act of disrespect for Sefer number A. Sefer number A is involved in my Torah learning. Because of Sefer number 1, the person studying can study book number 2 in a more effective manner. You follow what I'm saying? If book number 1 could speak, says the Magen Avraham, book number 1 would say, use me with pleasure. All we want, us club of Sifrei Kodesh, all we want is for the Jewish people to study Torah. That's all we want. And here, if I'm able to facilitate your learning of Torah, so I would love to do that. You follow? So I think it's a very clever twisting it around. It's the greatest respect for Sifrei Kodesh to enhance my Torah learning. You follow? It's not a bizayon, a bit like what you were saying. We were saying to pile things up in the wrong pile, to get undressed in front of it, to put it on the floor, to sit at the same level. That's all disrespectful to Sifrei Kodesh. But to use a Sefer Kodesh to enhance my learning, that's not bizayon, that's the greatest joy. That's the greatest use of the book.
Can we clarify? Because you mentioned learning Torah, and we are resting the Sefer Chumash, let's say, on the other book that is Sefer Kodesh. So I think me, and probably most of the people in this room would agree that Torah being supported by Sefer Kodesh is okay.
But not the other ways around.
The issue would be Sefer Kodesh, like Kitur Shulchan Aruch, let's say, and then we are resting it on Musar, which is another Sefer. Musar.
Oh yeah. I
mean Sefer Kodesh on Sefer Kodesh, not Chumash on Sefer Kodesh, because Chumash obviously is.
And they're different, yeah.
So I would have no problem with resting the Chumash on Sefer Kodesh. I would have an issue with Sefer Kodesh on Sefer Kodesh. I don't know if it's
So which one is okay for you?
Chumash on Sefer Kodesh, rested on Sefer Kodesh.
Ah,
Because
very
we have
interesting.
like a,
Very interesting.
No,
He's already in the hierarchy. There's a hierarchy.
yeah,
Right.
So meaning like a Chumash is sort of in a different level to all other Sfarim.
like we can stack. I mean,
Right.
Chumash must be at the top. Just the same issues here. You can support Chumash, but not another Sefer Kodesh on Sefer Kodesh.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a really interesting way to resolve, but like a sort of like a practical, it's not exactly a resolution, but sort of it's a respectful sort of modus operandi. Like yeah, it's a very useful way to integrate both the ideas of the Taz and also the ideas of the Magen Avraham into a practical solution. Meaning, in general, Sefer Kodesh, I would not use Sefer Kodesh 1 to prop up Sefer Kodesh number 2. But Sefer Kodesh is not a sort of a binary type of book. There's a hierarchy, as you said. The highest level is a Chumash, and therefore I would use a lower level of Sefer Kodesh to prop up a Chumash, because there I would say I would have the courage to follow the position of the Magen Avraham and say this is a Chumash. In any event, this other book will always be underneath the Chumash. But I would not do it the other way around. That's a really, really clever sort of like practical guide that integrates the values of both positions. That's really, really clever. Thank you very much, Shmuel. You did something very good. You showed great respect to both the Taz and to the Magen Avraham. Okay, Beseda, with that wise thought, we conclude our discussion of Sefer Kodesh. We've spoken about showing respect to a Sefer Torah, and we've spoken about showing respect to Sefer Kodesh. Now we turn to the topic of like destroying a holy book, or not sort of the end of a holy book's life. There's actually 3 topics, and I think we're not going to cover all 3 today. I think we're going to do the first one, and then the second 2 we will keep to next week, Be'ezrat Hashem. The first one is the topic of erasing Hashem's name. Now, this isn't necessarily just in a case of a sort of the way we treat Sefer Kodesh. This could be on a computer screen. This could be like in lots of different contexts. Are we allowed to erase God's name? I'll tell you a very quick and embarrassing story that happened to me when I was in high school. When I was in high school, we had a group of us studying biology A-level. And as part of our biology A-level, we had to go on a school field trip. And our school field trip teacher happened to be a very, very religious Jew. In fact, we all learnt so much just from how he spent his free time on this trip. He brought one little bag with his clothes and then a huge, huge suitcase with all his Sefer Kodesh that he brought to learn, for the few days we were away. Anyway, we as a class thought it would be nice that he hired a minibus, and he was going to drive the minibus for our trip. So we, the class, wrote, like in England, probably in Europe as well, in the winter, everything's very steamed up in the morning. So we wrote a note to the teacher on the minibus that we were going to go on. And like on the sides here, but then on the windscreen, we wrote in very big letters, we wrote the word Shalom. Now, as you may or may not know, Shalom is one of the names of Hashem. So our teacher said, you're not allowed to erase God's name. Well, I can't drive like for 3 hours without turning on the windscreen wipers and without, like, what am I going to do? So he was going to call one of the rabbis of the school, and you'll all know the answer at the end of the shir. He was going to call one of the rabbis to find out, can he turn the windscreen wipers on to erase the word shalom that we wrote on the windscreen? And the reason why it's an embarrassing story is because when he got into the car, he realized that we spelt the word shalom incorrectly. Baruch Hashem. And because we spelt it wrong, I think we did the lama the wrong, because you had to try and do it. We did the lama the wrong way around. So in the end, it didn't say the word shalom. It just said gibberish. And because it's gibberish, he could turn on he could turn it and he could erase it. And through that, we solved the problem. But there is a question that's obviously relevant to Sifrei Kodesh Bichlal. But what happens if we see God's name? Are you ever allowed to erase God's name? So I want to start by talking about the source for the prohibition of erasing God's name. Does it apply on paper? Would it apply on a screen? What would be the implications of that? Well, we're going to start with the source. The source is very, very interesting. The source is from the book of Devarim, when Moshe Rabbeinu was commanding the Jewish people about fighting Moab and Edom and all the nations that were living in Canaan, as we were about to enter the land. The book of Devarim, we were about to enter the land of Israel. So, as you know, there were idol worshippers in the land of Israel, and we were required to destroy. So the Torah tells us like this: V'nitatztem et mizbechotam. You have to smash their altars. V'shivartem et matzevotam, and you have to break their monuments. V'asherehem tisrufun ba'esh, and they're like wooden holy trees you have to burn. Uv'silei Elohehem, and like images of their gods. Tikadeon, you have to destroy. V'ibatetem et shemam mina makamahu, you have to blot out their name from that place. So if we encounter Avodah Zarah, you have to destroy it. I just remind you in brackets, I think it's the Gemara in Beitzah, but I might be wrong, that tells us that the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah doesn't exist today as it did at that time. So when we talk about uprooting idol worship and destroy this and destroy that, we're talking about an enemy that we don't have nowadays. I don't know really, none of us really know what Avodah Zarah means. We don't see people, flocking to some irrational God. I wonder nowadays, we probably do that now with a forget that.
Okay,
forget that. Yes, scratch. Anyway, so we're told to destroy Avodah Zarah. Destroy Avodah Zarah when you enter the land of Israel. Why destroy Avodah Zarah when you get into the land of Israel? Because we are trying to be an Am Hashem, which are be connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and these are distractions. So we destroy them. Now, look at the next verse. See the next verse? Lo ta'asun kain l'Hashem Elokechem. Do not do any of these things to the Lord your God. In other words, all the things that we are required to do to destroy Avodah Zarah, we are forbidden from doing those same things in our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I learn not to erase God's name because I'm required to erase the names of idol worship. You want to follow? So anything that I'm required to do in terms of destroying Avodah Zarah, whatever I'm required to do to destroy Avodah Zarah, I am forbidden from doing in terms of my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Is it the same time of logic about Amalek?
Don't know.
I mean, you're required to remember about destroy his name.
So Amalek is a bit more complicated. Amalek is a nation, right?
Yes.
But we believe there was, during the first temple period, there was a king called Sancheriv. The 10 lost tribes were Was he in the land of Ashur? I think, maybe I'm wrong. And he was a very powerful king, and his strategy was to weaken nations. Like take the people that live indigenous to here and move them to there. People indigenous to here, move them to there. Everyone moved around, such that there is no nation of Amalek nowadays. So what we've just described, is very much relevant today, but our mitzvah to destroy Amalek is...
No, I'm just saying in the context, like it is the same kind of like a reverse logic at some point. That's what I'm saying. You're supposed to remember, but you're supposed to destroy. It's like...
Oh, good. I feel very good. Oh, you're good, you are. Very good. Nice. No, I like what you're saying, because like destroying, I'm remembering. If I destroy, well, I'll forget it. Yeah, I see. Very good. I hadn't thought about that. Very interesting idea. Thank you. I'll have to think about that a bit more. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, let's go to the Rambam. So, now we get a very clear definition of what we're allowed to do. So, we just saw in the Pasuk, Lo tasun kein l'Hashem Elokechem. Right? Don't do any of these things to Hashem. The Rambam clarifies exactly what that means. And he writes like this. Kol ha'ma'abed shem min hashemot hakadoshim. Anyone who erases one of the holy names of God, lokeh min Torah, it's a biblical prohibition to erase God's name. Sharehu omer ba'avodat kochavim ve'ibadtem et shemam min hamakom hahu lo tasun kein l'Hashem Elokechem. The Rambam quotes the verses that we just read from Devarim. Do you see that? V'shiv'a shemot heim. There are 7 names of God, and they are like this. They go like this. Hashem HaNechbad, Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's what you know that one. Nachon. Fu Hashem HaMoforash. That's the explicit name of God. Or Shenichtav. And then we got over here. Do you see various names of Hashem? Kol HaMochek Afilu Ot Achad Mishiva Elu Lokeh. Anyone who deletes any of these names is punished. Do you see what's not on the list? Does anyone see what's not in there? Shalom. See? Shalom's okay. We could have turned on, even if we spelled the name right, we would have been able to turn on the windscreen wipers. Okay. Okay, is that clear to everybody? So the first point is that you're never allowed to destroy God's name. God's name is any of these names over here. Notice just in this oh no, he does write. No, well, Yud Kei Vav Kei is not written, but the other names are written. Sometimes they change the names a little bit, but here I thought they did. Okay, that's the first thing. The first thing we're not allowed to do is destroy God's name. From this din of destroying God's name, we now get to destroying other things, meaning destroying books that do not necessarily contain one of those names. Like see this over here. This is Torah Tippets. This is a weekly Torah. It doesn't contain any names of God. In fact, it's all in English. Would you be allowed to throw this away? So, or any of the books here, most of the books here, don't contain the name of Hashem. So the Rambam continues and explains further things in addition to the 7 names of God. What else are you not allowed to throw away? And with this Rambam, we will conclude the end of point number 3. So Rambam writes like this: Kitvei HaKodesh kulam u'feirusheihem u'beirehem asur l'tzorfam o la'avdam b'yad v'hama'abadan b'yad makin otom makat mardut. So you're not allowed to destroy Kitvei Kodesh, holy books. Any interpretations, explanations, you're not allowed to burn them, you're not allowed to destroy them. And if anyone does it, they're punished. But it's a rabbinical public, not a rabbinic punishment, not biblical. This is only if you're talking about something written by a Jew in holiness. Aval, apikoros Yisrael shekatav Sefer Torah. If it was written by a heretic, sorfin oto im ha'azkarot shebo, you're allowed to destroy the book. Mipnei she'eino ma'amin b'kedushat Hashem v'lo ketavo lishmo elo shehu ma'ale b'dato shezeh kashar hadvarim v'ho v'dato Ken lo nitkadesh Hashem. In order for a holy book to be a holy book, it has to be written with holy intent. And therefore, if it wasn't written with holy intent, it's not a holy book.
Maybe also with the same like holy person, because it's mentioned that because it seems to.
Yes, exactly. I'm just going to finish this and I'll tell you an example of this. Umitzvah lesorfanyu, it's actually a mitzvah to destroy these books. Aval oved kochavim shekotev et Hashem gonzinoto v'chein kitva kodesh shepalu or sheketav oved kochavim. If there's a holy book that gets worn out, then you're required to bury it. Now let me give you an example of a holy book that you're allowed to burn. And this is very rare, but I'll tell you another story from my childhood. And when I was a kid, I used to go to a lovely Jewish school, and right by the Jewish school that I would go to, often on Fridays, there was this organization. I haven't heard a lot about it recently, so I'm hoping it's weaker than it once was. The organization is called Jews for Jesus, encouraging Jews to leave the faith. And they would that they would like go to these teenage boys who are going through all the crisis of being a teenager, let's say, and they would give out really, really nice gifts. And one of the gifts they sometimes would give us would be a Tanakh. But it was a Tanakh translated into English, but the English translation was not an English translation written by a Torah scholar, but it was an English translation that followed their translation. So it's a Torah. We spoke the holiest book is a Torah. We had a teacher that would collect these books written in order to try to convince Jews to convert from their Judaism, and he would publicly burn these books. So even though the book contains God's name, that's only half of the story. If a book contains God's name, but the person who wrote God's name is a heretic, is somebody who doesn't believe in Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, somebody who doesn't believe in the one God, so then that book is not a holy book, and we are required to burn it. To destroy it, but it doesn't maintain its holiness. So a holy book is holy not just because the content is holy, but also because the person who printed the book intended it to be a holy book too. Is that clear? Okay. With that, we're going to conclude our discussion for this week. Next week, Bezrat Hashem, we will talk about what happens if the holy name of God is written in English letters, or either the English name of God in Hebrew letters, or the Hebrew name of God with English letters, or even G-O-D, or do you have to write G-T, or can you write Yud-K, Vav-K, can you write that in English? So we're going to talk about writing, or any language, writing holy books in languages other than Hebrew. What would be the din of those books? And then really, after all of that, you would all be great experts, and we will discuss disposing of Torah books. So for example, what would we do with this? What will you all do? This source sheet, of course, you all file away in your file of shiurim that I want to remember. But let's say there's a source sheet that you don't want to keep. What's the din of the source sheet? Like I mentioned at the beginning of today, every Friday in many of the Israeli newspapers, there's a Devar Torah on Parashat Shavua. Can I take the newspaper and throw it away on a Motzei Shabbat? It may have a posuk in it, it may have a Devar Torah in it. To put the newspaper in Geniza seems a little bit odd as well. Do I have to rip out the paper? No, what do I need to do? So we're going to talk based really on what we learned this week about respect for holy books. How do we dispose of holy literature when we no longer want to use it? This question becomes so much more relevant nowadays with photocopying and sort of 100 years ago, there was nothing like the levels of throwing away things.
These are like literally next door. So the place they're collecting the.
Isn't that crazy? It's like a modern problem that didn't exist previously. So that's for next week. But let me very, very briefly review what the journey that we've been on this week. We spoke started by talking about a Sefer Torah. We spoke about the respect that we need to have for a Sefer Torah. We stand up for a Sefer Torah. If I stand up for somebody who studies Torah, I would certainly stand up for the Torah scroll itself. The only time in the Torah that we're commanded to stand up is for people who learn Torah, and from that the rabbis learned if you stand up for the people, then you stand up for the book. So we stand up. We spoke about the respect for Sifrei Torah. After speaking about the respect for Sefer Torah, we went to speak about the respect for holy books, and we made 3 points. The first point was how to order the books. What's the order of the books? You know, when we have, then we spoke about sitting on the same level as the books. You should sit, you shouldn't. You know, the place of the holy books in the home should be never on the floor, never sit on the same level as them. If they fall down, you kiss them before you put them up. We treat them with great respect. And then we spoke about a library a Jewish book library, a book of Sefer Kodesh is not a bedroom. And if you do need to use a Sefer, holy Sefer, library as a bedroom, either cover the books in the room or be sure not to undress in that room. And then we had the debate about having one book to lean on another book. Is that respectful or not respectful? And we had Shmuel's excellent resolution that if it's a chumash can rest, which the Magen Avram would be happy with. But if it's not a chumash, then it's not respectful, and the Taz would be happy with that. So you managed to find a working model that shows respect to both sides of the argument. And then switching from respect to the books, what happens about destroying, if we have to destroy something, and we spoke about erasing God's name, and then after erasing God's name, we expanded also to all Kitvei Kodesh need to be treated with respect, and if they're written by a religious Jew, then they need to be buried, but if they were written by an Apikoros, so then it's not what makes the holy book holy isn't just the words, but it's also the person who wrote it, and therefore if a heretic wrote a holy book, we would be allowed to destroy it. Joy, happiness, questions? Question. Oh yes, good.
About leaving the book open and like at the table. And
Oh, that's such a good question. That's a very good question. I don't know what the answer is. I think it depends a lot on the context. Like, if it's for 2 minutes I'm coming back to the book, then it's fine. If it's like for 4 hours until I get back, it's probably not so good. I treat my holy books differently to the way I treat my non-holy books. Even in terms of the library that I put it in, that's a really, really, really good question. And there could be a cultural piece of that as well. That in some cultures it's rude to leave it open. What a lot of people do with their books to indicate they're coming back later is, let's say I have a book and I'm in the middle of reading it and I want everyone to know I'm in the middle of reading it. When I come back I plan on continuing. They leave it like this.
Yes, and I saw this exactly today.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
This means I don't think it's respectful because it's like, this is holy words here and I'm just like, like as if I've forgotten it and run off to do something. There's something more important than these holy words. So what people do is they do like this, and that's a nice resolution. It means my holy book is open, I'm in the middle of studying it, but it's not respectful for me to be on the holy page. So I'm not on the holy page in the holy book. Does that make sense to you?
how about turning it on to the beginning?
That's it, that's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's this. I mean, if you go there, yeah, this is also fine. That's also not, this is like the title page. Yeah, that would also be fine.
I'd like to know how we're going to translate this resolution to the computers, for example, today.
Oh, printing. Oh, not printing, like...
Printing. If you have something on the screen, and you're going away for a second, let's say.
So the truth is, this is relevant as well for Hilchot Shabbat. If it's a melacha of kotev, that's really what it's all about.
Well, yeah, but this is another stuff. Another This is another side of this.
No, but it's not permanent. That's really the answer
Yes.
there. It's not permanent. It's just electrons being shot at something or other, but it's not.
Yeah, I believe there's a different opinions on that.
Yeah, it's irrelevant. It's relevant not just for what we're talking about. It's also relevant
Yeah, but
for
I
Hot
just
Shabbat.
wanted to stick out to what Chaim was asking about. If you're going to translate this situation to the computer, so example, you're reading some holy text, let's say, on your computer screen, right? And it's like God's name in front of you, written right. Then you need to step out for a second. So what you're going to do? So you're supposed to close it. You're supposed to, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
I have no idea.
I'll pause here. I'll just tell you something very, very cute. I'll tell you afterwards. I'll tell you. It's a very cute story.